Well, it's a pretty busy week of OHL action ahead, and it all starts tonight with the Kitchener Rangers home to the London Knights in what is a marquee matchup to start things off. As London and Kitchener, of course, 1-2 in the Midwest Division, and the London Knights right now riding that 11-game points winning streak. So it's going to be fascinating to see that result, and we'll continue to follow along as this week progresses. But one team I wanted to talk about today are the Sarnia Sting. Are they going through growing pains, or are we seeing some habits here with the Sting Hockey Club? Right now, this Sarnia Sting team riding a 6-game losing streak. It has been tough going over the last 10 games. They have a record of 1-9, and they just had 8 games on the road where they were 1-7. They had to go on the road due to the under 17 challenge, which was taking place in their home barn. So let's dig a little deeper into this Sarnia Sting team, because for the Sting, they're a team that's they're young, the second youngest team right now in the Ontario Hockey League. So you weren't expecting Sarnia to be a contender, but the thought was they might take a step forward from what we saw last year, because they had the sell-off after going to the Western Conference Final in the 2023 OHL playoffs. They went all in. They brought in players like Luca Del Bel Baluz and Ethan Del Mastro, and they wanted to have a championship run. And that's exactly what they did. It was a remarkable season for hockey in Sarnia, as the Sting have never made it to a conference final before. But when you do buy like that, you trade away assets like, remember, Porter Martone and Angus McDonnell. There's going to be some lean seasons ahead. And right now, the Sting kind of in the middle of that. But I wanted to take a look at their first 23 games. They have a record of 7-12, 1-3. So that's good for 18 points so far, putting them 8th in the Western Conference standing. So not too bad, considering there's a few teams in the West who are kind of in that rebuild situation. You look at the Owen Sound Attack, the Guelph Storm, the Flint Firebirds, a surprisingly slow start, but you've got those 4 teams near the bottom of the Western Conference standing. So for Sarnia, still hope for the playoffs, and we'll have to wait and see how things go from here. But when you do look at the Sarnia Sting, compare that to last year. They had a record of 9-14, which also gave them 18 points. So their record, sure, they had nine wins on the season last year compared to the 7, but they still had 18 points after 23 games in the regular season. But what's also interesting to note here, a year ago, they were also riding a 6-game losing streak going into this mark of the OHL regular season. So you want to see the team progress. You want to see them taking steps forward. So when you compare this season to last, they're 2 wins off the pace of what they had last year when they missed the playoffs, but they're on the same amount of points. So they have 12 losses to 14 last year. So there's some similarities here. Is it a systems situation? Is it player personnel? Obviously, there's been some key injuries in the lineup. They've had players away at the U17 Challenge. So you haven't had that consistency for the Sarnia Sting, and plus the 8 games away from home. So those are probably all contributing factors, but still, you kind of want to see the points being a little bit ahead of what they had last year. Compare that to the great season they had in 2022-23 at the 23 game mark. They had a record of 14-6-2-1, and they were sitting at 31 points. So obviously it's a night and day difference between that team and where they are now. But I just thought it was interesting to look at the past records for the Sarnia Sting. And even in 2019-2020, when they also missed the playoffs, they had a record of 11-12, 23 games into the regular season and 22 points. So the Sting this year off that pace when they missed the playoffs. And I know for Sarnia fans, it's been tough going come playoff time, because there's been a lot of times. I did the Sarnia Sting team history video during the summer, and there was a lot of years where this team missed the playoffs or were knocked out in the first round. Last year, like I said, or 2 years ago rather, that was the first time they made it to the third round of the playoffs, and that's it. It's been really hard if you're a junior hockey fan in the city of Sarnia to see teams going deep when you've got down the 402 the London Knights, who seem to have deep runs almost yearly. So I'm not saying let's hit the panic button just yet for the Sarnia Sting, because I do like the pieces that they have. When you look at their young talent like Alessandro Diorio, who they drafted in the first round last year, he's had a great season so far. In 17 games, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. He's been a great player to follow. Also, Beckham Edwards, he was signed. He was a late draft pick for the Sarnia Sting, and he committed to Sarnia at the start of the regular season. he has been electrifying offensively in 17 games, 9 goals, 5 assists, 14 points. So they do have the pieces for the future to be a contender. It's just, what do you do for now? Obviously, you don't want to see this team sell off again and miss the playoffs, although they get a nice top pick. But I think this team, they should make the playoffs. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Sarnia should be a playoff team in the Western Conference, especially when they got players like Mitch Young, who right now leads the team in scoring. As a defenseman, he's played in all 23 games so far this year for Sarnia. 3 goals, 15 assists, 18 points to lead the Sting. So they don't have anyone on this lineup who's a point per game. So that's a work in progress. Zach Filak, another player who's played in all 23 games, a really good centerman. I really like Filak's game. He's second in scoring, 7 goals, 10 assists, 17 points. And then you have Easton Wainwright. I know he's missed some games this season. He's only appeared in 20 so far, but 8 goals, 7 assists, 15 points. I really like Easton Wainwright's work ethic. He is a great example of, he kind of reminds me of a Bo Jelsma type of player where he's a heart and soul guy. And right now he's third in team scoring with the Sting with 15 points. And Tyson Doucette, also there with 15 points, 8 goals, 7 assists. So I feel like the Sarnia Sting have the pieces to come together. Right now, it's just been a very slow stretch with that 6-game losing streak. But I just wanted to look at the comparables this year to last year. So they're off the mark on wins, but they're on the same pace when it comes to points. So is it a systems thing that needs to be addressed? I know that there's some fans in Sarnia who are becoming a little impatient, even with head coach Letang saying that they like to see something done differently, maybe behind the bench. But at this time, I think patience is going to be key. This is a very young team. They should make the playoffs. I'm going to say it here once again. I do like the chances of Sarnia making the playoffs, but it has been a little tough going if you're a Sarnia Sting fan waiting for success come playoff time. But just give it time. It'll happen. And I think they should snap this losing streak sooner rather than later. They got 2 games this weekend. They're home to Ottawa first and then Barrie. So obviously that Colts game on Sunday is going to be very tough for them. But Ottawa is a team that's been a little streaky. So maybe that's the game where they could snap the 6-game losing streak. Or going into Sunday, that could be viewed as a trap game for the Barrie Colts because you don't want to take your opponent lightly, especially when they're a team desperate for a victory. So I think the Sting will turn things around. I don't think they're going to win the West Division or go all the way to the OHL final, but I think this is a team that has the pieces that can really mold into a contender within the next couple of seasons, especially when you've got, like I said, Edwards and Diorio. I really like those 2 young pieces going forward. Some news to talk about. Jay McKee, the head coach of the Brantford Bulldogs, reached a milestone over the weekend. Career win number 250. So just wanted to say congrats to McKee. And it's crazy to see that he's already at 250 wins. Of course, he spent time with the Kitchener Rangers as a head coach and then the Hamilton/Brantford Bulldogs. So he continues to get wins. He's a little ways away from the all-time record, which is held by Brian Kilray, who has 1,194 wins. But you know what? He's already at 250, and that's still a pretty significant milestone for the head coach. Now, we also have the CHL Top 10 rankings that were released today, and 3 teams have made the Top 10 rankings. And number 1 in the country right now, the London Knights. They took top spot in the CHL Top 10. Of course, London riding that 11-game winning streak. Easton Cowan is on a 51-game point streak. And then they just got Casper Haltonen back. So this is a very lethal lineup. I talked about them in the OHL Power Rankings that I did yesterday. They're going to be a force, and tonight's game is going to be pretty exciting to see what happens between London and Kitchener. Of course, that's going to be at the odd. The other 2 teams to make the CHL Top 10 ranking this week, the Windsor Spitfires and the Kitchener Rangers. So just 3 representatives on the CHL Top 10. So that's the news for today. And also just want to do a bit of a deep dive talking about the Sarnia Sting, because I feel kind of bad for that organization that, it's a team that you want to see have success. And right now, it's been a bit of a down stretch for them with that 6-game losing streak. But I just wanted to talk about them and be optimistic because I think this team is going to be pretty solid in the next couple of seasons. They have the foundations, and I just wanted to touch on that here today. So let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on the Sarnia Sting. Do you think they make the playoffs? What kind of changes do you think the Sting team should make? Or do they play the patient game? Love the interactions. Thank you very much for all your supports. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Talk to you again soon.